In a moment likely to be recorded as one of the most fiery showdowns in South African parliamentary history, President Cyril Ramaphosa came under direct and scathing verbal attack by opposition leader Pheko Motsi in a volatile session that sent the chamber into disarray and the country reeling in shock. What began as an ordinary debate over governance, service delivery, and economic reform spiraled into a scene of political theatre and outrage when Motsi delivered an unprecedented declaration aimed straight at the president himself: "You're not a real president." The atmosphere in Parliament was already tense before the exchange erupted. Recurring debates on corruption allegations, joblessness, and dilapidating public services had placed the governing African National Congress (ANC) under great pressure. Motsi, a main opposition leader famous for his incendiary speeches and unflinching criticism of the governing elite, capitalized on the moment with accuracy and fervor. Standing up from his seat, he locked eyes directly on Ramaphosa, his voice slicing through the commotion of the chamber. "Honorable members," he commenced, "the people of South Africa are in trouble. The employment situation is at an all-time high. Service delivery collapses. Corruption scandals persist in haunting the very corners of government. And the man sitting before us considers himself a president." The chamber went quiet for one heartbeat before Motsi leaned forward and delivered the line that would echo throughout the country: "By any standard that counts to the people of this nation," he boomed, "you are not an actual president." What followed was parliamentary chaos. ANC MPs instantly burst out in indignation, shouting Motsi down and calling his comment disrespectful and disgraceful. Opposition benches thundered their assent, slapping their desks and chanting in solidarity. The National Assembly Speaker struggled to regain order, her gavel ringing against the table as voices swelled from all sides of the House. For several minutes, proceedings were swamped with noise, a cacophony of rage, cheers, and incredulity. President Ramaphosa, known as a man not easily ruffled even under severe pressure, was taken aback for an instant. For the first time in recent memory, the normally steadfast leader betrayed a glimmer of weakness. Correcting his glasses, he leaned forward, attempting to assert authority while regaining his bearings. When at last he spoke, his voice was calm but firm. "Respectable Motsi," he stated, "your remarks are intended to agitate, not to add to the positive argument that this House requires. I was elected by Parliament according to the Republic's Constitution. That is the law. That is why I am the President. Your inability to accept this does not alter the facts." Motsi, undaunted by the President's serene defense, pressed on with even greater intensity. "Mr. President," he replied, "this is not about the Constitution. It is about leadership. It is about vision. The people are weeping for action against corruption, for meaningful economic relief, for fearless leadership. And all they see is caution, delay, and never-ending commissions. A true president takes action. A genuine president tackles issues directly instead of taking refuge behind procedure and well-rehearsed speeches." The chamber exploded again, the shouting crossfire ringing through the parliamentary floor. MPs yelled over one another, brandishing documents and demanding disciplinary action. The Speaker's frequent calls for order were drowned out as the battle raged. For many observing, this was not just a political disagreement but a testament to the pent-up frustration engulfing South Africa, a nation beset by unemployment, corruption, and economic stagnation. Outside the chamber, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Within minutes, clips of Motsi's declaration went viral on social media, sparking fierce debate across the country. The phrase, "not a real president," it began trending online, appearing in hashtags, memes, and editorials. His supporters hailed him as a courageous truth-teller who had spoken for what millions of South Africans believe, that Ramaphosa's presidency has been too hesitant, too timid, and too out of touch with the people's pain. Opponents, however, denounced Motsi for showboating, claiming his comments were meant to humiliate the president rather than address the country's most urgent issues. Political analyst Linda Kosi described the confrontation as a theatrical yet telling moment in the evolution of South African politics. It's not just about the insult, she explained during a televised panel discussion. Motsi's words resonate because they capture a growing impatience in the country. People are tired of commissions, promises, and investigations that lead nowhere. They want a leader who acts decisively, who delivers tangible change. In that respect, his outburst, while disruptive, is a cry of deeper truth. Inside the ANC, responses were understandably defensive. A number of high-ranking party members dismissed the tirade as political posturing. This is not leadership, it's opportunism, opined one ANC parliamentarian off the record. The president's leadership is consistent, lawful, and anchored in constitutional values. We don't require din, we require outcomes. Governance is not a stage show, it's a matter of patience and process. Even among ANC ranks, however, there was grudging recognition that the opposition's fiery rhetoric had struck a nerve. Even in the midst of chaos, Ramphosa finally managed to restore order. With a measured but calm tone, he addressed the chamber once again. We may differ in approach, he said, but leadership is not about anger or loudness. It is gauged by endurance, by outcomes, and by the rule of law. My administration has set foundations for reform, and we will keep building on them. Let us not narrow governance to theatrics when the people demand solutions. His attempt to bring the debate back to substance garnered courteous applause from ANC benches. Although the tension in the air was far from resolved, the president's composure momentarily steadied the House. Yet even as order was restored, Motsi's accusation continued to echo. Journalists scribbled furiously in their notebooks. Television commentators replayed the moment frame by frame. It was clear that the phrase, "not a real president," had entered the political lexicon, a soundbite destined to follow Ramphosa long after the session adjourned. Outside Parliament, citizens debated whether the confrontation was a turning point or simply another episode in the long saga of political frustration. Analysts later said the event revealed a larger split in South African politics, a conflict between two schools of leadership thought. There is Ramphosa, the measured, process-oriented statesman who values stability and legality. And there is Motsi, the populist firebrand mobilizing public outrage and calling for swift, tangible action. This dynamic reflects a wider divide throughout the country, a people torn between patience with reform and frustration with its slow pace. Pundits warned that such standoffs would become more common as elections draw near, with opposition parties seizing on the ANC's declining popularity to turn parliament into political theatre. For Ramphosa, the dilemma will be to reconcile his measured approach with tangible progress to reassure an exhausted electorate. As one political commentator put it, if the president doesn't start showing results soon, Motsi's words will stick, not because they're true, but because people will believe them. As the session closed, the speaker finally succeeded in re-establishing a sense of calm. MPs withdrew slowly, heads shaking, expressions grim. The atmosphere in the chamber was thick not only with the residue of disagreement but with the feeling that something profound had shifted. The exchange had stripped away the politeness of politics, laying bare the naked tension between expectation and leadership. Whether this episode weakens Ramphosa or steels his resolve remains uncertain. What is undeniable, however, is that Motsi's challenge has altered the tone of political discourse in South Africa. It has reminded both leaders and citizens that beneath the layers of protocol and procedure lies a nation restless for transformation.